Hey, gang, and welcome back to the Movie-Club Emporium. And first and foremost, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you who sent nice words and condolences our way. This is our first new movie back. Last week we did the part of our monthly live that we do every month over at our Twitch channel. This month, Nick and I talked about the 28 Days Later franchise, where we did a pretty in-depth review of 28 Years Later, the hotly, somewhat divisive latest entry in this franchise. But so we got to put that up last week. And this week we're talking about a whole new movie, and it kind of felt... I did watch, full disclosure, I did watch this movie a few weeks ago and was going to record this review, and then things happened in our personal life, and so it did not really feel necessarily appropriate. So, it's also weird coming back to this movie kind of through that life event type thing. And so without further ado, we are talking about the newest David Cronenberg film. Because he was even in his 80s, he's still going strong. This is The Shrouds. And this is kind of his follow-up to Crimes of the Future, which is a movie that I did like, even though I felt a lot slower than some Cronenberg has in the past. And I'm going to get into that with my thoughts and feelings of that. But let's get into this movie first. Overall, I think I did appreciate this movie more than I actually enjoyed this film. That not really so much to do with the subject matter, but just kind of the chaos behind the scenes. Not even getting into the fact that it feels very autobiographical. Even though at some points he said it in interviews, he says it wasn't. Now, like when it's premiered at Cannes, he said it was. He did start writing this movie shortly after his wife passed away in 2017. And even so much as the fact that Vincent Cassel they make him look like current day Cronenberg. He's got that Cronenberg haircut. Man, there's just so much of this movie that is so interesting and thought-provoking and delving into some seriously deep conversations about grief and our human, for lack of a better word, idolatry with the dead. And the idea of AI and turning everything we are over to technology, and even the idea of grieving through technology is very interesting. The problem with this movie, and why I think it hasn't gotten as much praise as I feel like it would have, is... And so it was originally conceived as a series for Netflix. I don't know how many episodes, 10, 12, something like that, a series. For whatever reason, they ended up not happening, and so he turned it into this movie. And you definitely feel that, because this movie, it's trudging along, at just 2 hours. It feels like the first episode and a half, but then we jump to somewhere in the middle of the season, perhaps right before a mid-season break, and then we are all of a sudden at the moment in this movie where you expect it to be on the final 2 episodes of The Shrouds. We are going into this third act. and that's kind of where the movie ends. And so, yeah, this definitely feels like a hot, like watching a TV show, like not even necessarily like skipping every other episode, but like just like if you were to watch The Walking Dead, watch the first two episodes, watch the mid-season break, and then watch like the episode before the season finale. But don't watch the season finale is what it feels like. And it's really weird and confusing. I'm not sure quite what we were going for because it certainly does not feel like an ending to the movie. Um, what's interesting though is in watching this movie and watching Crimes of the Future, you start. I'm a huge Cronenberg fan. I discovered Cronenberg in high school. Um, and then as a horror nerd kid, you love like the classic stuff. Um, and then I really like, so to me this feels kind of like I said, following Cronenberg. I feel like this is kind of like we're entering the fourth and possibly final stage of Cronenberg's career, and they are four very distinct eras. I feel like from Shivers up until The Fly is the body horror. That's the one. That's the era that everybody loves. Especially if you're into horror. Shivers, Rabid, uh, Scanners, The Brood, Videodrome, The Fly. Like that's kind of like that sets Cronenberg up as the master of body horror. And then to me, it's shortly after The Fly, which is kind of, and the Dead Zone's in there too. The Fly to me is kind of like his penultimate stamp on the idea of body horror, as it pertains to like horror movies, straightforward horror movies. The Fly is kind of like his ultimate like swan song to that. And then he enters this weird second phase, um, which I call the controversial adaptations. And it actually begins with probably my favorite Cronenberg movie, which is Dead Ringers. But then you get things like M. Butterfly, Naked Lunch, the unfilmable Naked Lunch. And then, of course, Crash is kind of the big ending of that. Crash or Naked Lunch, where it's just like, this is these movies, there's no way these movies should have been adapted, and these books should have been adapted into films, and yet he does it. And only the way that Cronenberg can. And so then he has a weird moment in 99 because you get almost like he dips his foot into, last month Nick and I were talking about 90s virtual reality movies. And of course, all that kind of culminates with The Matrix. And I don't know if there's something in the water or what, because you also in 99 get Cronenberg kind of dipping his toe back into the body stuff, but not but leaning harder into sci-fi than horror with existence, which definitely feels like Cronenberg's kind of take on The Matrix. And then after that, we definitely lean into what I call the darkly human period, where we are telling very human stories, but we are talking about the dark side of human beings, where a history of violence, again, an adaptation of a comic book, but nowhere near as controversial as the others, and a very darkly human story. Eastern Promises. The one that I haven't seen, the one with with this cast I should, Dangerous Method, the one that has Viggo Mortensen, and Michael Fassbender, and Keira Knightley, where I think is it Mortensen's playing like Sigmund Freud, like a weird love triangle. And also includes his Robert Pattinson era, because you get Cosmopolis, again, a darkly human movie. Maps of the Stars, which is a very dark look at Hollywood and stuff like that. And then now I feel like we're entering what I like to call, what I'm calling his aged reflection. And this and Crimes of the Future kind of feel like he's revisiting themes from his past movies through, a man in his 80s eyes. Because looking at this movie in particular, The Shrouds, because we've kind of got off topic, but looking at The Shrouds, there's so much peppered throughout this movie that kind of feels like a callback to something like Videodrome. But whereas a movie like Videodrome feels very dangerous, and very kind of like, shooting from the hip type of statement making. This movie is very much a quiet and calm, deliberate look at some of those same themes, but through the eyes of a man who's now 40 years older and has gone through much more than the guy who created Videodrome has gone through. And so it is really interesting to see him kind of take this kind of self-reflective look at some of his past work. Because Crimes of the Future, it definitely has feelings of Scanners, what with this like underground cult thing. You have so much of the body horror, and then the stuff that even kind of digs into Dead Ringers in a way with these tools and these machines that are somehow organic. And again, it's not a movie that's bad or even disappointing. It is disappointing only because you feel like he wanted this to be so much more than it ends up being because of the limitations of having to cut this down to a series, or to a movie from a series. And so I feel like there's so much more missing to where things are rushed. But as far as movie goes, it's shot very flat. I should say that. There are some very beautiful sets. And the design of the shrouds are very striking. But it's also filmed very flat, very, streaming service television series. But as far as like casting, Vincent Cassel is fantastic. Diane Kruger, who very boldly does a lot of full nudity in this movie, still looks fantastic, and she plays twin sisters. Her being the sister, the twin, playing the living twin sister of Vincent Cassel's dead wife, because he's a like a tech billionaire, a very Elon Musky type character whose wife dies, and so he invents this technology called grave tech that allows you to, if you pay enough, allows you to bury your loved ones in these shrouds that allows you at the touch of an app to hold on to that. You never have to feel like you have to leave them alone. You're seeing them decompose in real time and still being able to hold on to that loved one. Again, digging into the whole the idolatry of the dead that we have. While also dealing with the noir mysteries of like somebody vandalizes the cemetery. Is it a rogue like eco-terrorist group because of what they believe the shrouds are doing to the environment? Is it people who are pro cremation over burial? Could it be politically influenced? There's a lot of talk about China and, spyware and drone type scenarios. So there's a lot going on in this movie that I feel is left to kind of devour itself or to decompose unnaturally because you are rushing to get to the end of the movie. And even though Cronenberg's movies are notoriously kind of feel like sometimes they end in the third act before you get that resolution, this even more like it feels like we're building to something and then the credits start. So I won't say that it's disappointing. It is just kind of like what could have been if this had been like picked up as a series, and again made me more than anything sit here and think kind of about Cronenberg's career, and in a way, like you do when you lose a loved one, you sit and you kind of retroactively trace yourself back through these periods. And so it was very interesting that this type of movie would make somebody who's a fan of this filmmaker do just that with that filmmaker's career. It's very interesting to me. And so it definitely is not a movie that I would recommend highly. It is a movie, though, he's just all over the place. He's losing his mind right now. It is a movie that if any of this discussion has interested you in any way, I would say go into it knowing that you will leave unfulfilled just because of the limitations of having to be cut down so drastically. I know he's written a novel. I haven't yet to read it, but I could definitely see perhaps taking this story, maybe fleshing it out completely as a novel and seeing maybe what all is missing would be interesting. But it is cool to see that in 2025, even at his age, and the fact that two of his, I think he only has 2 kids, but both of them are filmmakers and have kind of picked up, especially Brandon Cronenberg has kind of picked up that early Cronenberg torch. And so that is super, super cool. So you get that from him. His daughter had a movie come out last year that almost dips into that second or the third level of Cronenberg, where it's a darkly human story. So it is cool to kind of see, again, the Shrouds and stuff dealing with lineage and what exactly it is that you leave behind when you're gone. And so a lot of heady things for a little horror movie that kind of has yet to really grab the world by storm. But a movie that I think I enjoyed the experience of what the movie made me feel and what the movie kind of pushed my brain into going through more than I did the movie itself. So that's going to do it for this review of The Shrouds. In the comments, let me know if you guys have seen this movie, what you thought. And then also do all the fun stuff, the likes and the comments. Let's get that engagement going. And share it because we are, like I said, we did our live stream last week. This, for July, we're talking Superman. We're going to review the brand new Superman, and we're also going to rank all of the Superman live action films. So you aren't going to want to miss that. So if you're not joining us over there on Twitch, we'd like to do it here as well. So we need your help because we are so close to having enough subscribers where we can live stream on YouTube. So make sure we're sharing this stuff. Let's get it out there and let's get those subscribers in, and let's hopefully we're able to talk to you here as well as over there next month. And if not, then make sure you do join us because it is going to be a lot of fun talking all the Superman movies. But until next week, we'll be back with the new review. I'm not sure what yet, but we will have one. And then, as always, until then, we will see you guys next time. Bye.